travel by California, out here in Independence, California, ready to take on one of the toughest climbs in the country, Onion Valley Road. Now, this is longer than some of the most iconic climbs in the Tour de France. And Pjamm Cycling lists this as the hardest road climb in California. Now, this isn't off-road, but seeing how we're on the brink of winter and how bumpy I've heard the downhill is, I'm gonna be happier with wider tires. So, let's roll. Onion Valley is part of an epic climbs triad with Whitney Portal and Horseshoe Meadows nearby in the Owens Valley. When you compare next to Latour's icons of Alpe d'Huez, Col des Tourmalets, and Mont Ventoux, Onion Valley is as steep, but factor in its extra length at a superior elevation, it's easy to separate what's the most daunting. Take heed, because this climb could have been even more monumental had early plans to connect Onion Valley to Kearsarge Pass 2,000 feet above to Highway 180 had ever been realized. The town of Independence is modest size next to others you come across on Highway 395, but the area holds a more dubious history than most. The name comes from a fort north of town, used to displace thousands of Paiute and other native tribes with the Owens Valley Indian War. Just minutes to the south lies the hallowed grounds of Manzanar, where over 120,000 Japanese Americans were incarcerated, where it's hard to absorb the scale and humanity of these grounds. If you're looking for more history on the region, the century-old Mount Whitney Fish Hatchery sits just north, having a line on local knowledge. The town of Independence itself is equally quiet with its 19th century roots, even though it has served as a county seat since 1866. The climb starts off at Highway 395 on Market Street, where thankfully you don't take the mileage sign at face value. This 13.1 mile climb rises nearly a mile, averaging 7.8%, which can be broken down into 4 parts. The first half of the ride is defined by a steady introduction up to Independence Creek. The second act ribbons you into the Sierra, where the views open up and the pitches get punchy. The last 7 kilometers of the climb winds you deep into the mountains, where you factor in needing an oxygen tank. Of course, the final act is experiencing it all on the way down. You're welcomed with a humble start, with a light grade through the century-old footprint. And if there's any saving grace to the start, it's how it allows you to get into a groove. The first 3 miles gradually eases from 4 to 8% as time passes quickly, even on these straightaways immersed by the theater of the Sierra, if not for trying to locate where you're headed. You notice that even these lower elevations are the continuous freeze joints that made me glad I was riding 32s for the descent. Signage isn't really needed as you locate the presence of creeks with trees huddling nearby. As you begin to turn in, the mystery still remains. 5 miles in. Still know exactly where we're headed. The grade starts punching more into double digits, and you note the cattle guards for the descent, as the presence of campers makes you think the climb is more habitable. Good morning! Is this the top? Oh, okay, great, thank you. Don't expect emergency services to help you, as there's no water along the way. Passing Seven Oaks Road transitions you to the next phase of the ride, hitting 15% as you have a little more clarity where you're now headed. Independence Creek may be calming, but it's clear as the road serpentines that you have to take care of what's in front of you. You finally start to have a sense of the elevation you gained as the first hairpin swivels the Owens Valley behind you. Squinting also starts to pay off, as you can make out the upper half of the road if you concentrate enough. You also realize your visuals are underscaled, as the Inyo Mountains sit above 10,000 feet just across. Just past the second switchback, you've passed the 7,000 foot mark, making your way inward. As you start to hit due west, we've actually covered the distance of Alpe d'Huez. We still have over 4 miles to go. It's amazing to think that at even this elevation, you're just starting to come across exposed rock, having ridden mainly in the sediment carved away by the glaciers. But you wind your way among this loose rock as the next phase begins. Launching into these last 8 switchbacks that define this section, you may be disoriented as the first 4 run parallel north-south, while the second half go east-west. Each turn brings in a new level of drama as the valley dwarfs more so below. While this section is less steep and more consistent than the previous, elevation is the main factor as you battle air getting thinner by the pedal stroke. It's also your first encounter with larger swaths of greenery that's clearly in a battle over false supremacy for color. As the roadway shifts northward, you feel the mountains hovering above, locking you in as your struggle for oxygen continues. Still, you're thankful the engineering chose these long sweeping curves instead of punishing you with shorter but steeper grades. After the last hairpin, there's only a mile of climb left, which you're lured into taking it up a notch along the straightaway. The end of the road includes some pageantry, as it's a popular spot for campers and hikers, even furnishing bathrooms. But while you are enclosed, it is worth a look around and to assess what you've accomplished. Well, I didn't think that was as bad as I thought it was. Maybe it's because you're going slow. If you try and go 5% faster, maybe 50% harder with all the elevation. I'm not going to try and prove it. Even with the knowledge gained on the way up, reversing Onion Valley is a completely different experience on the way down, descending like angels as you succumb to these floating views. As you cross Independence Creek, it's good to keep the brakes handy, as some of us did a better job remembering the cattle guards. It doesn't take as long finishing these last 6 miles as much as you have to wait for your ears to pop. So, hands down, that was one of the most gorgeous climbs I've ever done. The way the curves presented each view was just unworldly. Sure, it was paved, but I tell you, had I been in my road bike on those descents, I might have needed some dental work. Anyways, please support us by either subscribing or being a supporter on Patreon, or just go to our shop so we can continue to travel around California to bring you more from the State of Dirt.